That night, I learned something important. When you hear singing in the woods at 3 a.m., you don't wait around to see who's doing it. It was summer 2014, and my girlfriend at the time and I were just looking to get away for a couple nights. South Carolina heat, dirt roads, a tent in the trunk, and zero plans, just how we liked it. Our first pick was some paid campground about 45 miles out from town, but when we got there, they tried charging us double what we expected. So we bailed. I remembered this off-grid spot closer to home. No fees, no fences, just pull off the road and pick your place under the stars. It was a little hidden, tucked off an old trail near a historic bridge, beautiful, quiet, and crawling with old Southern history. Some of the oldest railroad tracks in the South ran through there. We rolled in before sunset. A few cars were still in the lot, probably hikers finishing up before dark. We weren't worried. We pitched our tent, made a small fire, and soaked up the evening. But one thing stuck out, a busted old white van sitting on the far end of the parking lot. Rusted to hell. No license plate. Just parked there. Like it had been abandoned, or maybe not. We both clocked it right away. Weird, sure, but we shrugged it off. Night fell. The sounds of nature replaced everything else. Frogs, crickets, wind in the trees. We eventually crawled into the tent, sipped ourselves in, and drifted off. And then, around 3 a.m., I heard it. A voice. Singing. Low, drawn out, almost like a lullaby. But broken. Off-key. And distant, like it was floating in from deep in the woods. I sat up slowly, heart already tapping against my chest. "Do you hear that?" I whispered. My girlfriend nodded, wide-eyed. We were both frozen for a second, just listening. The song was getting closer. I couldn't make out all the words, but I remember one line clear as day. "Now won't y'all come out?" And then laughter. Raspy. Wet. Like whoever was laughing had phlegm in their throat. I slowly unzipped the front of the tent and peeked out. I couldn't see anyone, but the singing kept creeping closer. Not fast, just steady. Footsteps started crunching through the leaves. We didn't say a word. Just started packing up as quietly and quickly as we could. I slung the tent and chairs over my back, grabbed her hand, and we ran. We didn't look back, just moved as fast as we could toward the faint glow of the parking lot lights through the trees. And that's when we saw it. Those lights weren't just from the street lamps anymore. The headlights of that old, rusted van were on, aimed straight toward us. The same van from earlier. It was parked right in front of our car. We didn't stop running. I kept glancing back, and I could hear him. The singing had stopped, replaced by this breathy humming, low and rhythmic. Then a shout. "Don't y'all think you'll get away?" His voice was close. Too close. Gravel crunched louder with every step behind us. As we hit the parking lot, I handed her the keys. She sprinted for the car, started it up, while I tossed all our gear into the back seat like a madman. I jumped into the driver's seat, slammed the door shut, and then made the mistake of looking up. He stepped out of the woods into the beam of our headlights. A massive man. Red, patchy hair. Wrinkled, cracked skin. A scraggly goatee stained with dirt. His eyes locked onto us like a predator. He raised a baseball bat above his head and barked. "Get back here!" I didn't wait. I floored it in reverse, whipped the car around, and tore out of there, tires spitting gravel in every direction. In the rearview mirror, I watched him slam the bat down in frustration. We didn't stop until we hit the Waffle House near the highway. Spent the rest of the morning there, just watching the door, jumping at every noise. That night I learned to trust my gut. If we'd ignored that singing, stayed another minute, who knows what that man would have done. If I hadn't laid in the leaves and played dead that night, I don't think I'd be alive to tell you this. It was my third and final night camping solo in Northeast Ohio. Just me, the woods, and my hammock strung between two pines. The first 2 nights were perfect. Peaceful. Quiet. Almost boring, if I'm being honest. But that last night? That one nearly turned into a nightmare. I woke up around 3 a.m., needing to take a leak. Cold air, stars overhead, and that eerie silence you only get deep in the woods. As I stepped away from my hammock, I noticed something strange, a faint headlamp bobbing in the dark about 80 feet away, moving in slow, uneven patterns. At first, I figured it might be another camper. But something about it felt wrong. This guy wasn't walking the trail. He was pacing. Standing. Sitting. Moving again. Just circling some invisible spot in the woods. I slipped on my boots, grabbed my hatchet just in case, and kept low as I crept along the edge of my sight to stay out of view. I had to know what this guy was doing. Then I saw it, another headlamp. This one was closer. About 40 feet off. Flickering through the trees the same way. 2 of them? No way that was a coincidence. 2 strangers just wandering around the woods in the dead of night near a solo camper? Nope. That wasn't normal. I dropped to the ground, heart racing, and pulled a layer of damp leaves over myself. I didn't move. Barely breathed. The second man came within 10 feet of where I was laying. I could see him, skinny, twitchy movements. He didn't notice me though. Just stopped, lit a cigarette, took a drag, popped open a beer, and stood there like it was just another night. He finished the drink, tossed the can aside, and wandered off in the opposite direction, back into the shadows. Once he was far enough, I slipped out of the leaves and circled back toward where I'd first seen the other guy. I moved slow, careful, my boots barely brushing the ground. I got just close enough to hear his phone pinging, buzz after buzz, message after message lighting up his screen in the dark. He stood up and started walking, right toward my hammock. I dropped again, face in the dirt, hoping to God he didn't see me. My fingers gripped the hatchet like a lifeline. I heard him trashing the place. Ripping the tarp above the hammock. Flashlights flickered, mine among them. Clatters. Something heavy thrown down. Then a voice, low and irritated. He was just here. There were 2 voices now. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just stayed as still as I could, until their footsteps faded and my stolen flashlight's beam grew dimmer and dimmer in the trees. When I finally got back to my campsite, my stomach turned. Everything was destroyed. The tarp? Shredded. Hammock? Slashed like someone had gone at it with a blade. My mess kit? Crushed flat under a boot. My rain gear, backpack, and flashlight gone. I wandered back to where the first guy had been, hoping to find something. What I found was worse than I imagined. Empty beer cans, chew pouches, and a lighter. The other guy's spot was filthier, a bag of meth, a pile of cigarette butts, and a steaming heap of crap with no toilet paper in sight. It hit me then, if I hadn't gotten up when I did, if I'd still been in that hammock when they arrived. I'm not sure I'd have made it out of there. Whatever they wanted, I wasn't going to stick around to find out. I grabbed what little I had left and got the hell out, didn't look back once. Some people think camping solo is peaceful. And usually it is. But sometimes you're not alone out there. It was 1 a.m., deep in the Blue Ridge Mountains, when a stranger walked straight into our camp and started asking about our lanterns. My best friend and I go camping every year, just the 2 of us, roughing it since we were 13. It's never been anything but peaceful. Until last year. We'd gotten there during peak season and barely found a spot the first night. Had to throw the tent up on the side of a damn mountain, where the wind cut through like a knife. The next day, we drove into town, drank too many beers, and came back up late in the afternoon to find a better spot, this time, more remote and out of the wind. We set up camp fast, got the fire going, cracked more beers, and by the time we even noticed the time, it was probably close to 1 a.m. That's when we saw the flashlight. At first, we figured it was a ranger. Who else walks up on people this deep in the woods at that hour? But if you've spent any time camping, you know the rule. You don't approach a stranger's site in the middle of the night unless it's an emergency. This guy didn't get the memo. He came stumbling into the firelight, wearing a shirt, basketball shorts, and a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. Following a few paces behind him was a woman, probably in her 40s, who never looked up once. She just stood there, arms crossed, like she didn't want to be there. Right away, this man forced himself into a conversation, talking about absolute nonsense. Lantern models, how cool ours looked, his time in law enforcement, blah blah blah. None of it made sense. None of it mattered. Then his flashlight landed on our tents. "Oh, that's where you guys are sleeping, huh? Cool setup." He said it casually, but it didn't feel casual. His eyes and flashlight were scanning, calculating. Like he was taking inventory. Counting how many people were there, what gear we had, what might be worth coming back for. We felt it. You know that primal feeling when someone's sizing you up? Not just curious, measuring you? Yeah. That. Then, just like that, he was done. Conversation over. He and the woman turned and walked back into the woods. The light from his flashlight flickered through the trees until it was gone. My buddy and I looked at each other. Didn't say a word. We just started packing. We moved camp. Far enough that he wouldn't find us again. That night still sticks with me, not because anything happened, but because of how close it felt to something happening. He was going to come back. I'm sure of it. You don't forget that feeling when someone's deciding if they're going to do something bad to you. We thought we were the ones pulling the prank. Turns out, we weren't the only ones playing around that night. It was 2016, and my friends and I had finally synced our schedules to hit Los Padres National Park for a weekend camping trip. We'd waited months to make it happen, and nothing was gonna stop us. Not even the storm that was forecasted 3 days before we left. We were stubborn. So we went. The site was one of those big family-friendly loops, about 100 lots nestled around a clearing in the woods. We picked a spot under some thick trees to shield us from the rain, and it helped that the bathrooms were just 30 yards away. With the sky still holding, we set up fast. We pitched our tents close together, maybe 6 feet apart, and I threw a massive 30 by 30 blue tarp over both for extra cover from the storm. It worked. But it also meant that any movement outside echoed through camp. Crunching plastic. Every footstep loud and unnatural. Later that night, we gathered around the fire. Most of the other campers were holed up in RVs. We were the only ones dumb enough to be in tents. By the time I called it a night, I was wiped. I crashed in my tent with my buddy Miles. Before passing out, I whispered to him, "I'm gonna prank call Liam and Julian." They were camped out in the other tent. I dialed from a restricted number. First time, they ignored it. Second time? Liam answered. "Hello?" he said, nervous. Miles and I were trying not to laugh. I leaned into the phone and breathed, slow and heavy, like a horror movie villain. Then hung up. They freaked out. Classic. After a few minutes, we told them it was us. We all got a good laugh out of it, and eventually fell asleep. By morning, I was the first one up. Started cooking breakfast, and one by one, the guys emerged, groggy but hungry. Julian sat down, looked at me, and said, "Hey man, the prank call? Funny. But walking around our tent and going inside. That was too far." I stopped what I was doing. "What?" They went on, said they heard footsteps crunching around their tent after the call. Then someone unzipped their flap. They were too freaked out to say anything in the moment, but they were sure it was us. Problem was, we never left the tent. Miles and I were dead asleep by then. No one from our side moved. Whoever was out there, creeping around their tent, wasn't us. Maybe the prank call wasn't the worst idea after all, because if someone else had been lurking out there in the rain, maybe we scared them off. Still, to this day, we don't know who or what came into their tent that night. But one thing's for sure, it wasn't a joke anymore. At first, we thought it was just a prank. Then we realized, someone really had stepped inside the tent that night. And it wasn't one of us. The next morning started with laughter, until it didn't. I was flipping pancakes, still half asleep, while Julian and Liam sat across from me with stiff looks on their faces. They weren't laughing. They weren't even smiling. "Look," Julian said. "The prank call was one thing. But walking around our tent, and coming inside, that was too far. I blinked. What are you talking about? They went quiet. Miles looked just as confused as me. And that's when they told us everything. After I'd passed out and Miles had laid down beside me, the others stayed up for a while, listening to the rain tap against the blue tarp stretched beneath our tents. Then, around an hour later, came the sound of footsteps, heavy, deliberate, and slow. They weren't forest animal steps. These were human. The footsteps traced wide figure eights around both tents, crunching the plastic tarp like bubble wrap under boots. Whoever it was didn't just circle us. They lingered, running their fingers across the tent fabric. Back and forth. Stroking it. Then, silence. Until the zipper started sliding open. The flap only parted halfway, but in the darkness, Julian and Liam saw it, a man's silhouette, face level, poking just inside. He didn't speak. Didn't move. He just watched them. They pretended to be asleep. Breathing steady. Hearts racing. Then, without a word, the man opened the flap wider and stepped inside the tent. Just stood there, staring down at them. After what felt like forever, he stepped back out. His footsteps faded into the rain, vanishing into the woods. At that point in the breakfast story, we were all visibly shaken, arguing over who could have possibly done it. And just as the tension boiled over, he arrived. "Morning, boys," said a raspy voice from the edge of camp. We turned. There he was. Mid-60s, maybe older. A greasy, sweat-stained white t-shirt clung to his thin frame. Blue jeans soaked from the knees down. He smelled like he'd been sweating out liquor for days. His smile was yellow and nearly toothless. "Sleep good last night?" he asked. No one said a word. He asked if we had any cigarettes. We told him we didn't smoke. He shrugged. "Well, if y'all want to hang out, stop by my RV anytime." And just like that, he walked off toward the bathrooms. Then, weirdly, came back through our sight, smiling again as he passed. That was when I noticed it. His RV wasn't just closer than the rest, it was filthy. Busted up awning. Rust creeping up the sides. It sat maybe 50 yards from us, right next to its own private bathroom. Yet for some reason, he'd chosen to walk all the way across the campground to use ours. We pieced it together right then. The liquor smell in the tent. The silent, watching figure. The unwashed clothes. The strange fascination with our setup. It was him. We didn't report it. Not yet. But we made a silent agreement, keep our distance. Stay alert. And if he came back again, we'd go straight to the rangers. He returned once more around lunchtime, casually asking if we were interested in buying his RV. Told us we could come check it out. Look inside. We declined. Politely, but firmly. This time, he caught our tone. His smile faded. He turned and walked away without a word. Hours later, he packed up and drove off. But not before glancing back at us one last time. I don't know what he wanted. I don't care. All I know is, that morning, when we thought we were the ones playing the joke, turned out to be the start of something much darker. There's something about swimming over 65 feet of darkness that plays tricks on your mind. But what happened to us that night wasn't just in our heads. This was 4 years ago, back when my boyfriend and I were still new in our relationship. Things were exciting. Everything felt fresh. My sister had suggested this little camping and snorkeling getaway, something different. The place was a flooded quarry, surrounded by forest. Crystal clear water, they said. Great for diving. The site was popular for underwater exploration. There was even a sunken school bus and a helicopter at the bottom. Kind of eerie. Kind of thrilling. It sounded perfect. And honestly, at first it was. We snorkeled in the shallows most of the afternoon. The water shimmered in the sunlight, and for a while, everything was calm, beautiful, even. But the quarry had a dark side. Once you swam out beyond the shallow ledge, it dropped. Instantly. From waist deep to 65 feet of cold, black silence. And when I say black, I mean pitch, like falling into ink. It gave me a weird feeling, swimming out there. Like something was down below, watching. Waiting. But I pushed the fear aside. We laughed. We floated. And then we pitched our tent nearby and got ready for the night. That's when things shifted. It's one thing to fear the dark. It's another thing to know someone's watching you from within it. That night at the quarry, the one with the beautiful stars and crystal clear water, is also the night I realized just how much deep water freaks me out. I'd held it together all day, but once the sunlight vanished, and that black, yawning pit beneath the surface swallowed all reflection, the fear settled in deep. Still, we were having fun. Laughing. Winding down. We were camped on a grassy slope, a little ways down from the road, tucked beneath a cluster of trees. Our neighbors across the way had just returned to their site. Their camp looked lived in, coolers, chairs, scattered gear, but as soon as they got back, they went straight to bed. That's when the mood shifted. It started with silence. The kind that hums behind your ears when you know something's wrong. Then we saw him. A dark figure, half concealed by shadows, standing at the top of the hill by the road. He wasn't moving. Just watching. We couldn't see his face, but we could feel his stare, like a weight pressing down on our chests. He stood just behind our neighbor's truck, using it as partial cover. We didn't speak. We didn't move. We just watched him watch us. Eventually, he turned and walked down the road, vanishing behind trees as he moved. I tracked him between the trunks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then nothing. He should have come out the other side, but he didn't. It was like he just disappeared. We stared for a while, both uneasy, but eventually shrugged it off. Maybe it was nothing. Just someone cutting through. Harmless, right? We even took a walk to the quarry. The water, black as space, rippled under starlight. Beautiful, but unnerving. I remember standing at the edge and thinking how easy it would be for something to be down there. Watching. Waiting. When we got back to the tent, I couldn't shake the unease. I was trying to ignore it when my boyfriend whispered, "Do you feel like we're being watched?" I laughed it off nervously. "Why? You trying to freak me out?" But I felt it too. That tight feeling in your gut that tells you to run before your brain catches up. We stepped out of the tent, standing near the car. That's when I had this strange idea. What if the safest place is the middle of the field? No trees. No shadows. Nothing to hide behind. So we walked. And that's when we saw him again. Same shadowy figure. Same silent stare. Only now, he was moving when we moved. We changed direction. So did he. We told each other, if he matches us one more time, we're running. We turned. He turned. We ran. Straight to the car. Slammed the doors. Locked them. Watched from the windows as he stood at the edge of the field, and slowly backed into the trees. Eyes still fixed on us. We packed our gear as fast as we could, silent and tense. Got out of there by 1 a.m., left everything we couldn't carry, and didn't stop driving until we hit the lights of home. Later, I told my dad what happened. He didn't hesitate. "You're lucky you left. Could have been murdered." Turns out, 2 people had died at that campground. Drowned while snorkeling, supposedly. But we never found out how or who. And we don't think the figure that stalked us was just there to steal gear. He watched us. Tracked us. Matched our steps. And I don't think he planned to stop. I was 4 years old when I first learned that not everyone in a car is just going for a drive. Back then, I lived with my family in a small house tucked into a not-so-great neighborhood. But I didn't know that. Not really. My world was sidewalk bike rides, cartoons, and my big brother showing off how fast he could go. That day, the sun was shining, and my mom had just attached training wheels to my brand new bike. I was so excited, I could finally keep up with my brother. We pedaled side by side, laughing, riding without a care. That's when I noticed the red truck. It was old. Big. Its paint was scratched and faded, like it hadn't been washed in years. The windows were dark, so dark I couldn't see who was inside. It was just sitting there. Engine off. Facing the sidewalk, right where we were riding. I didn't think much of it. At first. But as my brother and I sped up, riding farther ahead, the truck started to move. Slowly. Always behind us. Always close. Every time we turned down another block, it followed. Not rushing. Not honking. Just gliding along like a shadow. Eventually, my mom caught up to us and spotted the truck too. She shouted, loud and sharp, calling us back to her. We skidded to a stop, confused. She ran toward us, that protective fire in her eyes, the kind only a mom can have. As soon as we got near her, she stood in front of us, arms wide, glaring at the truck like she could rip it apart with her stare alone. Whoever was inside must have believed it, because the truck sped off without a word. It disappeared around the corner. Gone. That was it. No confrontation. No license plate. Just a shadow on wheels. And that's how I learned, even as a kid, that danger doesn't always look like a monster in the dark. Sometimes it just idles at the curb, watching you ride your bike. Picture a pitch-black road. No streetlights. Just trees on both sides and headlights cutting through the dark. That's where it started. But it didn't end there. 2 weeks after my mom had snapped that picture of the red truck's license plate, the one that had been tailing me and my brother, everything came crashing back. We were in the living room, watching a movie. It was late, maybe close to midnight. My dad wasn't home. He was on one of his regular night shifts, like always. That's when we heard it. Sirens. Far off at first. Then closer. They'd been going for a while, 15 minutes, maybe more. Then, suddenly, bang, someone was trying the back door. Not knocking. Trying to open it. My mom jumped up. The lock on that door had been acting up, so she physically held it shut while yelling for us to stay down. That's when the sound moved. Someone was at the kitchen window now. Jiggling it. Slapping the glass. Then, a clink of stone on glass. They were trying to break in with a rock from our own garden. Somehow, the window didn't shatter. My brother and I ran into our parents' bedroom, the only room with a working lock, and crawled under the bed. We didn't make a sound. Didn't even breathe loud. Just lay there in the dark, p-mousing they wouldn't get inside. And then, the sirens exploded down our street. Blue and red lit up the windows. Voices shouted in our backyard. Heavy footsteps. Dogs barking. Then, silence again. The patrol cars pulled away. Eventually, we came out. Shaken. Pale. But okay. The man trying to break in? It was him. The one in the red truck. The one who followed us weeks before. Turns out he'd been running from the police. Ditched his truck a few blocks over and tried slipping into our house to hide. And it gets worse. He wasn't just a fugitive. He was a registered pedophile and a human trafficker. The kind of man who doesn't just run from the law, he hunts. Looking back, maybe he had been watching our house for days. Maybe he thought my mom was a single mother with 2 kids. Maybe he picked our place because it looked vulnerable. But he was wrong. Because my mom? She's the reason we're still here. There's something deeply wrong about people who don't react. Especially when they're standing in the middle of the road. At night. In silence. It was 2018 or 2019, spring break, and I was living in Nebraska. Cornfields, silence, and flat stretches of land that seemed to go on forever. My friend's house sat right on the edge of town, where the suburbs turned into open farmland. It was massive, acres of land, four-wheelers, a hot tub, the whole dream. During spring break, we basically lived there. Drinking, lounging, laughing. But I always left before it got too late. Something about that place after dark just felt off. The drive back home took me down this long, winding 2-lane road that snaked through trees and open fields. On the way, you pass one of the city's largest cemeteries, a place that, even during the day, had a strange weight to it. That night, it was about 10 p.m. warm breeze, windows down, music up. I was cruising. relaxed, until I came around a bend and slammed on the brakes. There, in the middle of the road, maybe 50 yards ahead, was a family. 3, no, maybe 4 people. A man. A tall, slender woman. A small child. And a stroller. They weren't walking on the shoulder. They were walking in the dead center of the road. No flashlights. No phones. No visible light source at all. Just slowly moving forward, away from me, through the dark. I turned my music off. Rolled the windows up. They didn't turn to look at me. Didn't flinch at the sound of tires screeching. Didn't change pace. They just kept walking in complete silence, as if I didn't exist. Their clothes weren't ragged, but they weren't fresh either. Plain. Out of place. No one walks through this part of town at night, especially not through a forested road that barely anyone uses. It was like they had stepped out of a different time, or a different world. I sat there behind them for what felt like forever, waiting for them to turn around. Acknowledge me? They never did. Eventually, I steered into the grass, slowly edging around them. As my headlights swept across their backs, I half expected them to turn suddenly, to reveal something awful. But they didn't. They just kept walking. I got around them, sped up, and didn't look back. I still don't know what I saw that night. Maybe it was just a weird family who lost their way. Maybe it was something else entirely. But every time I think about it, I remember one thing. They never reacted. Not once. And that's what keeps me up. I thought I was dreaming. It was too surreal, too slow, too quiet. But I wasn't asleep. I was wide awake, and I still remember how the stroller looked completely empty. They all stopped. All at once. Like puppets having their strings yanked. Their heads didn't jerk, didn't whip around. They just slowly turned to face me. I couldn't see their faces, and I didn't want to. Something primal screamed, "Don't look too close." Without thinking, I slammed the car into reverse. My tires squealed against the asphalt as I flew backwards down the road, hands trembling, barely able to keep the wheel straight. I must have gone for 20 seconds before whipping the wheel into a U-turn and gunning it in the opposite direction. That stroller, it had no child. Just an empty cloth seat swaying gently with each step they took. That image? That's what stuck. That hollow space where something should have been. I ended up back at my friend's house, shaking, heart pounding, checking my rearview every 10 seconds the whole way there. But I never saw them again. No movement. No sign. No lights on the road. They were just gone. I've driven that road dozens of times since. Night and day. Never seen anything like it again. When I told my friend's family about it later, they gave me that look, the kind that people give when they're trying not to tell you you're crazy. But I know what I saw. I felt it. Whatever they were. I don't think they wanted help. And I still wonder, if I'd waited a little longer, if I'd looked straight at them, what would I have seen? I always ran to clear my head. But that spring, I learned something you don't forget. When your instincts scream at you, you don't ask questions. You run. I was 15. The only girl in a family of 4 kids, all born within 5 years of each other. My mom was doing her best to raise us after the divorce, but with 4 teenagers and 2 jobs, we were left alone a lot. Didn't matter. We had each other. We knew how to survive. When I was alone, I ran. That spring, I was running almost every day. And that's when I noticed the black Suburban. It started subtly. I was finishing my usual route, pushing hard for that final imaginary finish line like I always did. Just as I started sprinting, I saw something big and shiny in my peripheral vision, a massive black SUV, matching my speed, gliding up beside me like it was racing me. It scared the hell out of me. The last part of my route was a dead stretch of empty street, no traffic, no homes. This wasn't just bad timing. It was intentional. When I finally crossed my mental finish line, the SUV was already 30 yards ahead. It slammed on the brakes. Just stopped. I stood there, panting, hunched over, staring at it. waiting. But the car didn't move. It just sat there for several minutes, engine idling, windows dark. My gut turned cold. Something was wrong. Really wrong. I remembered what my mom always told me, trust your instincts. So I jogged into the trees, cutting through an undeveloped patch of land between neighborhoods. I crouched in the brush and waited. Sure enough, the SUV drove slowly past again. In the opposite direction. Watching. From then on, I started paying attention. Because it happened again. And again. Second time, it crept behind me, just far enough to stay visible in my peripheral, but too far to read the plate. Third time, same thing, except I jumped a fence into someone's yard and hid behind a tool shed until it left. No dogs, thank God. Nobody home. Just me and the shadows. I finally told my oldest brother. I felt silly, paranoid. But I couldn't ignore it anymore. The fourth time was different. This time, I had my music up. I was jogging, relaxed, not alert. And then beep beep. A horn blared right behind me. I spun around, heart jumping into my throat. The same black Suburban. Driver's door already open. A man's voice barked from inside. Hey! Hey! I didn't look. I didn't hesitate. I ran. Fastest I've ever moved in my life. I heard the door slam. The engine revved. Tires peeled out behind me. But I ducked between houses, jumped another fence, and kept going until I couldn't hear him anymore. I don't remember what street I ended up on. I just ran until it felt safe. I never got the license plate. I wish I had. But in that moment, survival was the only thing I could think about. And I've never run for fun again. I had 50 yards left. That was it. Just 50 more yards until the narrow shortcut path behind my neighborhood, too small for a vehicle to follow me down. But I didn't know if I'd make it in time. I was sprinting like my life depended on it, because maybe it did. The black SUV trailed behind me, speeding up just enough to get right beside me, then falling back again. I never looked at it. I just kept my eyes locked on the path. Then, 20 yards from safety, I saw someone walking toward me on the sidewalk. It was my brother. Now, let me tell you something about him. He's not loud. He's not hot-headed. His anger is the kind that runs cold. Focused. Controlled. Dangerous. He saw my face first. Then he saw the car. Without a word, he bent down, grabbed a fist-sized rock off the ground, and started running straight toward me, and screaming. Not yelling, screaming. A deep, guttural roar I'd never heard come out of him before. Right as I felt the SUV creeping up behind me, my brother let the rock fly. It smashed into the upper corner of the windshield with a crack so sharp it made my ears ring. The SUV slammed on the brakes, and my brother didn't stop. He kept coming, headed straight for the driver's side door with that same terrifying calm. They must have felt it. Because in that instant, they peeled out, tires screeching, engine howling, and disappeared down the road. My brother chased them a few yards, but they were gone. That was the last time I ever saw that vehicle. I didn't go running for 4 months. And when I started again, I left the headphones behind. I still remember that moment in my bones. Later, I asked my brother why he came looking for me that day. He just shrugged. I don't know, he said. I just thought I should check on you. That's the kind of brother he is. And I thank God every day that he listened to that instinct.